In a recent breakthrough, researchers have made a groundbreaking discovery, revealing the presence of microplastics deep within the respiratory system of human beings, a finding that has never been reported before. The analysis conducted on various samples has consistently demonstrated the presence of these microscopic plastic particles in nearly all the cases examined. According to the scientists, the presence of microplastics has become widespread and can now be found in every corner of the globe. As a result, human exposure to these pollutants has become inevitable, leading to growing concerns about the potential risks they pose to our health. During the surgical procedures, a total of 13 patients underwent tissue removal, and subsequent analysis revealed the presence of microplastics in 11 of these cases. The most frequently detected microplastic particles were composed of polypropylene, which is commonly employed in plastic packaging and pipes, as well as polyethylene terephthalate, which finds applications in the production of bottles. It is worth noting that 2 prior studies conducted separately obtained comparable results demonstrating the occurrence of microplastics in lung tissue collected during autopsies. In the realm of human exposure, it has been established that individuals are not only inhaling minuscule particles, but also inadvertently ingesting them through the consumption of food and water. Moreover, there have been documented cases of workers who have been extensively exposed to elevated levels of microplastics and have subsequently experienced the onset of various illnesses. In March, researchers made a groundbreaking discovery by detecting the presence of microplastics in human blood for the very first time. This finding indicates that these tiny particles have the ability to circulate throughout the body and potentially accumulate in organs. While the exact impact of microplastics on human health remains unknown, scientists are expressing concern due to laboratory studies that demonstrate the damaging effects of these particles on human cells. As of right now, scientists have said that they did not expect to find the highest number of particles in the lower regions of the lungs or particles of the sizes they found. These statements were made by Laura Sadowski at Hull York Medical School in the United Kingdom, who was a senior author of the study. She continued by saying that it is surprising as the airways are smaller in the lower parts of the lungs, and we would have expected particles of these sizes to be filtered out or trapped before getting this deep. The data presented here represents a significant advancement in the realm of microplastics and their implications for human health. This valuable information holds immense potential in enabling researchers to fabricate genuine environmental conditions within laboratory settings, thus facilitating more accurate and insightful assessments regarding the health effects of these pollutants. The research, recently approved for publication in the esteemed journal Science of the Total Environment, involved a meticulous analysis of healthy lung tissue samples taken adjacent to the surgical sites. In order to accurately gauge the impact of outside contamination, control samples were also employed. The researchers carried out a comprehensive examination, taking into account a multitude of factors to ensure the reliability and validity of their findings. A comprehensive study conducted in Brazil in 2021 focusing on autopsy samples revealed the presence of microplastics in 13 out of 20 individuals who were analyzed. It is worth noting that the average age of the participants in this study was higher than those assessed in the research. Among the various types of microplastics identified, polyethylene, commonly used in the production of plastic bags, emerged as one of the most prevalent particles. The researchers involved in the study drew a significant conclusion stating that the inhalation of these contaminants in the respiratory system could potentially lead to detrimental health outcomes. A comprehensive study conducted in the United States in 1998 focused on lung cancer patients and yielded some intriguing findings. The researchers discovered the presence of plastic and plant fibers, including cotton, in over 100 samples collected. What is particularly noteworthy is that these fibers were identified in both cancerous and non-cancerous tissue samples. A staggering quantity of plastic waste is indiscriminately disposed of in our environment, causing significant harm. This pervasive problem extends far beyond our immediate surroundings, as microplastics have infiltrated even the most remote corners of the planet, from the lofty heights of Mount Everest to the unfathomable depths of our oceans. The detrimental implications of this contamination resonate deeply as studies have revealed the presence of microplastics, not only in the placentas of pregnant women, but also within the delicate tissues of developing fetuses in pregnant rats. A recent review thoroughly examined the potential risks of cancer associated with micro and nanoplastics. The conclusion highlighted the pressing need for extensive research on how these tiny plastic particles impact the structures and functions of the human body. Microplastics have also been found inside human heart tissues for the first time. Microplastics have become a pervasive presence in various aspects of our lives, including our food, water, air, and even certain regions within our bodies. Despite extensive research, our understanding of microplastic distribution within internal organs that are shielded from direct environmental exposure remains limited. However, a recent pilot study conducted on individuals who underwent heart surgery has shed new light on this issue. As reported by researchers in ACS Environmental Science and AMP Technology, microplastics have been detected in numerous heart tissues, indicating their unexpected presence. This groundbreaking finding not only highlights the widespread prevalence of microplastics, but also suggests that these microscopic particles may be inadvertently introduced during surgical procedures. Microplastics refer to small plastic fragments that measure less than 5 millimeters in width, roughly equivalent to the size of a pencil eraser. Recent research has shed light on the fact that these minuscule particles can find their way into the human body through various entry points like the mouth, nose, and other interconnected body cavities. However, it is worth noting that numerous organs and tissues remain enclosed within the body, leaving scientists without sufficient knowledge regarding the extent of their exposure to microplastics and the potential consequences arising from it. Consequently, the scientific team undertook a comprehensive investigation with the aim of exploring both direct and indirect pathways through which microplastics may have infiltrated the cardiovascular systems of individuals. Additionally, they highlight the significance of this finding, shedding light on the overlooked pathway of microplastic exposure through invasive medical procedures. These procedures allow for direct access to the bloodstream and internal tissues, making them an important route of exposure. However, the researchers emphasize the need for further investigations to comprehensively comprehend the effects of microplastics on a person's cardiovascular system, especially in the context of heart surgery. Understanding the prognosis of individuals after undergoing such procedures in the presence of microplastic exposure remains a crucial area that requires additional research. Back in February, people across Turkey said that they observed birds acting strange prior to the earthquake which hit the region, and they've now said that birds are once again exhibiting strange behavior. Oddly enough, it's been observed that birds behave strangely before an earthquake, leading some to believe that they may have the ability to sense seismic activity before it occurs. Interestingly, some animals have been observed to have the ability to detect earthquakes before they occur. This is believed to be due to their heightened sensitivity to changes in their environment, such as vibrations or electromagnetic fields. On the February 6, 2023, a seismic event with a magnitude of 7.8 hit the southern and central areas of Turkey, as well as the northern and western regions of Syria. The focal point was located 37 kilometers in the west-northwest direction of Gaziantep. The seismic disturbance reached its highest level of intensity in certain regions of Antakya, which is located in the Hatay province. At approximately 24 minutes past 1, there was a 7.7 magnitude earthquake that occurred immediately after the preceding event. The earthquake's epicenter was located 95 kilometers in the north-northeast direction from the initial one. The quake caused extensive damage, and tens of thousands of people lost their lives as a result. Several days before this earthquake hit, people living in the region noticed that birds and other animals were acting strange, detailing that birds could be seen flying around in circles and heading towards higher ground. As of right now, people have reported that this is happening again, and it's led some to take the sightings more seriously. It's for this reason that people worry when they see animals acting like this, with residents fearing that a big earthquake could hit the region within the next few days. There is evidence to suggest that some animals have the ability to sense when an earthquake is about to hit. This is thought to be due to their sensitivity to changes in the Earth's magnetic field, which can be disrupted by seismic activity. One well-known example is the behavior of animals before the 2004 Indian Ocean earthquake and tsunami. In the days leading up to the earthquake, there were reports of animals acting strangely, such as elephants and dogs refusing to go near the shoreline and birds leaving their nests and flying inland. Back in 1975, a Chinese official reported that snakes, frogs, and rats had all abandoned their habitats before a major earthquake struck. Other studies have found that animals can exhibit unusual behavior before earthquakes, such as dogs barking more than usual and fish swimming to the surface of their tanks. Due to animals exhibiting these strange behaviors, it's caused some to say that this might be one way to predict earthquakes. Scientists continue to study this phenomenon in the hopes of better understanding the relationship between animals and seismic activity. Birds have a remarkable ability to navigate and orient themselves during long-distance migration, even across oceans and continents. One of the key ways in which birds accomplish this is by detecting the Earth's magnetic field. Scientists believe that birds have specialized structures in their eyes that allow them to see magnetic fields. Specifically, there is evidence that birds are able to detect the direction and intensity of the Earth's magnetic field using a protein called cryptochrome, which is sensitive to magnetic fields and is found in the eyes of birds. Once birds have detected the Earth's magnetic field, they are able to use it to orient themselves and navigate during migration. For example, some migratory birds appear to use a magnetic map to determine their position relative to the Earth's magnetic field, allowing them to follow a particular migratory route. Earthquakes can indeed have an effect on Earth's magnetic field, although the magnitude of the effect is typically quite small. The interaction between earthquakes and Earth's magnetic field is a complex one that is not yet fully understood by scientists. But there are several ways in which earthquakes can affect the magnetic field. One way that earthquakes can affect the magnetic field is by generating electric currents in the ground. When rock is deformed or crushed during an earthquake, it can create electrical charges that flow through the ground. These charges can then induce electrical currents in the ionosphere, which is the upper layer of the atmosphere where Earth's magnetic field interacts with charged particles from the sun. Another way that earthquakes can affect the magnetic field is by changing the physical properties of the rocks in the Earth's crust. The rocks in the crust contain magnetic minerals, which can become magnetized by the Earth's magnetic field over time. When an earthquake occurs, the physical properties of the rocks can be altered, which can change the magnetic properties of the minerals. This can, in turn, affect the overall strength and direction of Earth's magnetic field. The United States Geological Survey said the following: "The earliest reference we have to unusual animal behavior prior to a significant earthquake is from Greece in 373 BC. Rats, weasels, snakes, and centipedes reportedly left their homes and headed for safety several days before a destructive earthquake. Anecdotal evidence abounds of animals, fish, birds, reptiles, and insects exhibiting strange behavior anywhere from weeks to seconds before an earthquake. Most, but not all, scientists pursuing this mystery are in China or Japan. An earthquake forecast was made in China several decades ago based on small earthquakes and unusual animal activity. Many people chose to sleep outside of their homes and thus were spared when the main earthquake indeed occurred and caused widespread destruction. However, usually no large earthquake follows this type of seismic activity, and unfortunately, many earthquakes are preceded by no precursory events whatsoever." End quote. The most dangerous thing about an earthquake is the potential for widespread and severe damage to buildings and infrastructure, which can result in loss of life and injury. Earthquakes can cause the ground to shake, liquefaction of soil, landslides, and tsunamis. The strength of an earthquake is measured by its magnitude on the Richter scale, which ranges from 0 to 10. A magnitude 7 or higher earthquake can cause significant damage and loss of life. In addition to physical damage, earthquakes can also cause emotional trauma and long-lasting psychological effects, particularly in those who have experienced severe shaking or destruction of their homes and communities. The aftermath of an earthquake can also be dangerous, with the risk of aftershocks, landslides, and other hazards, such as gas leaks, fires, and disruptions to vital infrastructure such as water and power supplies. The severity of an earthquake's impact depends on a variety of factors, including the magnitude and depth of the earthquake, the distance from the epicenter, and the type of terrain and construction in the affected area. Earthquake-prone areas are often subject to building codes and other regulations designed to minimize damage and protect residents. But even in areas with strict regulations, earthquakes can still cause significant harm. Volcanoes are classified based on their size, activity level, and potential impact on their surroundings. There are two main types of volcanoes: stratovolcanoes, also known as composite volcanoes, and shield volcanoes. However, supervolcanoes are a special type of volcano that are much larger and more powerful than either of these. Normal volcanoes can range in size from just a few 100 meters to several kilometers in height. In contrast, supervolcanoes are much larger, with a caldera that can be tens of kilometers wide. Normal volcanoes can erupt relatively frequently, sometimes several times a year or even more often. In contrast, supervolcanoes have much longer intervals between eruptions, typically on the scale of tens or 100 of 1,000 of years. While normal volcanic eruptions can be devastating to the surrounding area, they are generally much smaller than supervolcanic eruptions. A supervolcano eruption is typically considered to be one that releases at least 1,000 cubic kilometers of material, which is more than 100 times the volume of material released by the 1980 eruption of Mount St. Helens. Normal volcanoes typically erupt with magma that is rich in silica and other minerals, which makes it very viscous and prone to explosive eruptions. In contrast, supervolcanoes typically erupt with magma that is much less viscous and more fluid, which allows it to flow over a much wider area. A normal volcanic eruption can have devastating impacts on the surrounding area, including destruction of property and loss of life. However, a supervolcanic eruption can have impacts that are felt around the world, including global cooling due to ash and gas released into the atmosphere, which can have a significant impact on global climate and agriculture. Scientists have just warned that supervolcanoes are currently our biggest threat and that they have the ability to devastate modern society. Michael Cassidy, a professor of volcanology at the University of Birmingham, said the following: "Over the next century, large-scale volcanic eruptions are 100 of times more likely to occur than our asteroid and comet impacts put together." End quote. This recent announcement comes after scientists were studying asteroids and our planetary defense and revealed that we are doing very little in regards to supervolcanoes. The researchers have also noted that the human population has massively increased since the last supervolcano eruption, further noting that increased human activity in volcanic areas, such as mining and geothermal power production, can sometimes trigger small to moderate eruptions. The researchers involved in the study said they came to this conclusion after looking at planetary defense systems around the world. Governments and global agencies spend varying amounts on planetary defense initiatives depending on their priorities and available resources. The main focus of planetary defense is to identify, track, and potentially mitigate the impact of near-Earth objects, such as asteroids and comets, that could pose a threat to the planet. The largest funder of planetary defense initiatives is currently NASA, which has an annual budget of around $150 million for its Planetary Defense Coordination Office. This office is responsible for leading NASA's efforts to detect and characterize potentially hazardous near-Earth objects, as well as developing and testing strategies to deflect or destroy them if necessary. Other countries and organizations also contribute to planetary defense efforts, but the funding amounts vary widely. For example, the European Space Agency has an annual budget of around $15 million for its Space Situational Awareness Program, which includes near-Earth object detection and tracking. Rather worryingly, it was during this study that researchers said that there's very little we can do when it comes to supervolcanoes. Supervolcanoes are considered to be one of the most dangerous natural disasters that could occur on Earth. A supervolcano eruption is an incredibly powerful explosion that can release thousands of times more energy than a regular volcanic eruption, and the amount of energy released is enough to cover an entire continent with ash, leading to global impacts. One of these eruptions can release an enormous amount of ash into the atmosphere, which can block out the sun for weeks, months, or even years. This can cause global cooling, which can impact agriculture and cause food shortages. The ash released during a supervolcano eruption can also combine with water vapor in the atmosphere, leading to the production of acid rain. This can damage crops, forests, and water supplies. A supervolcano eruption can also release pyroclastic flows, which are fast-moving currents of hot gas and volcanic matter. And these flows can reach speeds of over 100 kilometers per hour and can incinerate everything in their path. A supervolcano eruption can trigger tsunamis that can cause massive destruction along coastlines. The displacement of large volumes of water can lead to huge waves that can travel thousands of kilometers across oceans. The effects of a supervolcano eruption can be felt around the world. The release of ash, gases, and other materials into the atmosphere can impact climate, leading to global cooling, changes in rainfall patterns, and other effects. At this moment in time, researchers involved in these studies have said that a supervolcano eruption is incredibly dangerous due to its massive explosions, large ash clouds, acid rain, pyroclastic flows, tsunamis, and global impacts. While these eruptions are rare, they've noted that the most famous supervolcano that is considered potentially active is the Yellowstone caldera in the United States, which last erupted approximately 644,000 years ago. Scientists have said that one of the most worrying outcomes after the eruption of a supervolcano would be the significant impact it would have on agriculture. The primary impact would come from the ash cloud that would be produced during the eruption. This ash cloud would block out sunlight, leading to a drop in temperature and reduced photosynthesis in plants. This would result in a decrease in crop yields and could potentially lead to famine and food shortages. In addition to the ash cloud, the eruption could also release large amounts of sulfur dioxide into the atmosphere. This gas can combine with water vapor to form sulfuric acid, which can fall to the ground as acid rain. Acid rain can damage crops and make soil less fertile, further reducing crop yields. The eruption of a supervolcano could also have long-term effects on agriculture, with researchers saying that the ash and other volcanic materials that are deposited on the ground would alter the chemical composition of the soil, making it less fertile. The volcanic ash can also release nutrients into the soil, which can lead to an initial boost in plant growth, but can also lead to nutrient depletion over time. The last time a supervolcano erupted was approximately 26,500 years ago, when the Taupo volcano in New Zealand erupted. This eruption was classified as an 8 on the Volcanic Explosivity Index, which is the highest level on the index, with scientists saying that it produced more than 1,000 cubic kilometers of ash and volcanic material. The eruption was so powerful that it created a large caldera or collapsed volcanic crater, which is now filled with water and known as Lake Taupo. Another notable supervolcano eruption occurred approximately 74,000 years ago when the Toba caldera in Indonesia erupted. This eruption produced an estimated 2,800 cubic kilometers of ash and volcanic material, which blanketed much of India and Southeast Asia. The eruption is believed to have had significant global consequences, including a potential cooling effect on the Earth's climate and a genetic bottleneck in human evolution. It is important to note that supervolcano eruptions are relatively rare events and can occur on timescales of 100 of 1,000 to 1 million of years. The bottleneck effect is a genetic phenomenon that occurs when a population is drastically reduced in size, leading to a significant loss of genetic diversity. This can happen due to a number of reasons such as natural disasters, diseases, or human-driven factors such as overhunting or habitat destruction. In the context of human evolution, the bottleneck effect refers to the theory that modern humans descended from a small group of our ancestors who survived a population bottleneck event around 70,000 years ago. This bottleneck event has been attributed to a number of factors, including a massive volcanic eruption in Sumatra, Indonesia, which caused a global climate shift and led to a severe reduction in human population size. As a result of this bottleneck event, the genetic diversity of the human population was greatly reduced, which means that many genetic variations that had been present in our ancestors were lost. This loss of genetic diversity is thought to have had a number of important effects on human evolution, including making us more susceptible to certain diseases and reducing our ability to adapt to changing environmental conditions. Despite the reduction in genetic diversity caused by the bottleneck event, some genetic variations were still present in the surviving population. Over time, these variations became more common as the human population grew and diversified, leading to the genetic diversity that we see in modern humans today. The supervolcano that most are worried about is Yellowstone, which is located in northwestern Wyoming. If the Yellowstone supervolcano were to erupt, it would have catastrophic effects not just for the local region, but potentially for the entire planet. First, the eruption would likely be much more explosive and violent than a typical volcanic eruption. The initial blast could send ash, gas, and debris tens of thousands of feet into the atmosphere, causing a massive ash cloud to form. This ash cloud could spread across the United States and even circle the globe within a matter of weeks or months, blocking out sunlight and reducing temperatures worldwide. The ash cloud could also trigger a nuclear winter effect with the reduced sunlight causing a drop in global temperatures and disrupting weather patterns. This could lead to crop failures and food shortages, as well as a range of other environmental and societal impacts. Closer to the eruption site, the ash and debris from the blast could cause widespread devastation. Buildings, roads, and other infrastructure could be buried under several feet of ash, and local communities could be cut off from the outside world for weeks or even months. The explosion could trigger massive mudslides and landslides, and ash fall could pollute water supplies, making them unsafe to drink. In the long term, the Yellowstone eruption could have even more serious consequences. The ash cloud and subsequent nuclear winter could trigger a mass extinction event, wiping out entire species of plants and animals. The eruption could also lead to a long-term cooling trend with global temperatures dropping and climate patterns shifting. Overall, an eruption of the Yellowstone supervolcano would be a global catastrophe with far-reaching and long-lasting consequences for the planet and all its inhabitants. Yellowstone National Park, in collaboration with the U.S. Geological Survey, closely monitors the Yellowstone supervolcano for any changes in behavior that could indicate an impending eruption. The park has an extensive network of monitoring stations that continuously measure and record data on earthquake activity, ground deformation, gas emissions, and other indicators of volcanic activity. The USGS also maintains a Yellowstone Volcano Observatory, which is responsible for monitoring and studying the volcano. The Yellowstone Volcano Observatory uses a variety of tools, including seismometers, GPS instruments, and satellite imagery to track changes in the volcano's behavior. The Yellowstone Volcano Observatory also works closely with other agencies, such as the National Park Service and the Federal Emergency Management Agency, to ensure that plans are in place to respond to a potential eruption. In addition to monitoring the volcano, the park and its partners conduct extensive research on the geology, ecology, and hydrology of the region. This research provides important insights into the processes that drive volcanic activity and helps scientists better understand the potential hazards associated with the Yellowstone supervolcano. The park and its partners also engage in outreach and education programs to help the public better understand the risks and potential impacts of a volcanic eruption. Scientists find potentially alive 830-million-year-old microorganisms. A recent discovery has scientists rethinking the history of life on Earth. A team of geologists have discovered potentially living microorganisms that may be 830 million years old. They found the tiny remains of prokaryotic and algal life inside halite crystals. This discovery points to the possibility that halite, also known as rock salt or sodium chloride, may be a great resource for studying ancient saltwater environments. Additionally, just like the microorganisms the geologists found inside the halite crystals, they may find more organisms that might still be alive. This study has many implications for the study of ancient life here on Earth, but also on other planets like Mars. On Mars, scientists have already found salt deposits that may be evidence of ancient water reservoirs. The possible life that scientists found inside the halite crystals also presents ancient life in an entirely new way. In their research paper presenting the study, the team writes, ancient chemical sediments, both on terrestrial and extraterrestrial origin, should be considered potential hosts for ancient microorganisms and organic compounds. Ancient microfossils had been found pressed into rock formations which preserve life in a different way than salt. Inside the halite, fluid can be preserved, and these fluid inclusions are incredibly valuable as they contain information about the water at the time the mineral was preserved, like the water temperature, chemistry, and atmospheric temperature. Previously, scientists have found other microorganisms like bacteria, fungi, and algae inside halite environments. Some of the questions they are still trying to answer are whether or not those organisms are as old as the halite they live in, and whether or not they are even still alive. The researchers have noted that the fluid inclusions could serve as microhabitats for the organisms. They also know that there are organisms in modern extreme environments that can essentially go into hibernation where they are still alive, with their biological activities slowed down. This could be the case with the microorganisms inside the halite. In addition, they have already found living prokaryotes inside 250-million-year-old halite, so it's possible that number will reach as high as 830 million with other findings such as this recent one. Scientists researching this finding have noted that these microorganisms can now be identified without destroying the samples, which could give scientists a new set of tools that can be used for identification that can have broader implications for our understanding of Earth. Earth has a 27,500,000 year heartbeat, but we don't know what causes it. Mother Earth is a mysterious force to be reckoned with. As much as we love to honor ourselves as a great species, we have only existed for a tiny portion of the Earth's current lifespan. There is a reason why ancient pagan societies all over the classical world viewed our beloved planet as a maternal force of divinity. It provides for us, gives us food, and resources we can use for our survival and leisure. Whereas in the past, our ancestors revered the elements and the power they had over them in fear and fascination, we have taken a stance of control. We like to believe we are in power, but the earth, nature, and all chemicals and creatures have existed before we even evolved. Nature has a mind of its own. It does its own thing and cares little for humans. And as it turns out, the earth has a heartbeat and a pulse which has existed for about 260 million years. Currently, there is a lack of explanation as to why this is, but a research team from the University of New York has been carrying out the study with Michael Rapino, a geologist, as the team's leader. This heartbeat is not the kind we are accustomed to. Rather, it is a title given to recurring clusters of phenomena and events. Events such as mass extinction where major life forms on Earth perish. Past mass extinctions have occurred simultaneously with the Earth's pulse. Generally, whenever there is one major catastrophe happening, it is followed by other minor disasters, volcanic eruptions, fluctuating sea levels, magma spewing from the Earth's crust, among other things. The study concluded that this heartbeat and pulse has repeated various times in a cycle during the past 260 million years, but there is no scientific reason as to why that is. Scientists are baffled by the cycle's existence. The knowledge that our planet, which provides for us, also harshly punishes us and takes away what she has given is frightful, to be sure. But there is no need to worry at the moment, as the next predicted pulse is not supposed to occur for another 2 million years. In the last 260 million years, the dinosaurs roamed the Earth, became extinct, the original continent of Pangaea split into 7, and humans evolved into the civilizations we are today. And all through that time, natural disasters have hit harshly and cruelly, often all at once. Every 27,500,000 years, the heartbeat repeats, and disastrous consequences repeat in its wake. Rampino addressed the fact that many geologists believe these events are simply random by assuring them that their study found a continuous cycle which occurs, historically, at the same time, too concise to be random. These geologic events are correlated and not random, says Rampino. Ozone hole near South Park shrinks to smallest size ever. Humanity's impact on the Earth is well known, and our impact on the ozone layer is one that has incited significant action since it was growing year on year. In 2019, the hole in the ozone layer near the South Pole shrunk to its smallest size since 1982. It is not actually a hole, but merely an area with depleted levels of ozone, specifically an area in which ozone concentrations drop below the historical threshold of 222 Dobson units. National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, known as NOAA, polar orbiting satellites are used to monitor the ozone hole. According to NASA and the NOAA, the Antarctic ozone hole was affected by abnormal weather patterns in 2019, limiting ozone depletion, which led to the smallest ozone hole since 1982. Ozone, which is comprised of 3 oxygen atoms, occurs naturally in the stratosphere and adds protection to the planet from ultraviolet solar radiation, which can cause cataracts and skin cancer. Stratospheric ice clouds form in the Antarctic when temperatures fall below -78°C, and these clouds promote production of chlorine and bromine, which when combined with sunlight in the Antarctic spring causes a reaction that leads to a loss of ozone, resulting in the Antarctic ozone hole. The annual ozone hole reached its peak extent of 6,300,000 square miles on September 8, 2019, and then shrank to less than 3,900,000 square miles for the remainder of September-October. Unusually warm weather led to the smaller ozone depletion. Similar weather patterns in 1988-002 also resulted in atypically small ozone holes. Normal weather conditions tend to result in a maximum area of about 8 million square miles in late September or early October. The 2019 weather systems were unusually strong, warming the Antarctic stratosphere. It was 16 Celsius warmer than average during September, a time where ozone destruction is normally at its peak. According to NASA, It was the warmest September for 40 years. The Antarctic polar vortex was also weakened, moving its center, which is normally over the South Pole. This slowed vortex rotation, allowing air to sink in the lower stratosphere, which impacted the ozone hole in two ways. It minimized the persistence of polar stratospheric clouds and allowed ozone-rich air from elsewhere in the southern hemisphere to travel to above the Antarctic ozone hole area. There is a massive variability each year with the size of the ozone hole. Whilst 2019 was the smallest on record since 1982, the 2020 hole is above average for the last decade. On September 20, 2020, the annual ozone hole reached its peak area at 9,600,000 square miles, driven by persistent cold temperatures and strong circumpolar winds, similar to the value recorded in 2018. However, by approximately 2070, scientists expect the ozone hole to shrink back to the size it was in 1980. DNA is a molecule that contains the genetic instructions used in the development and functioning of all living organisms. It's a long double of all living organisms. It's a long double-stranded helix composed of 4 different types of nucleotides: adenine, guanine, cytosine, and thymine. The sequence of these nucleotides determines the genetic code of an organism, which governs everything from its physical traits to its biochemical processes. DNA is located in the nucleus of a cell and is responsible for the transmission of genetic information from one generation to the next. Contact with extraterrestrial life is a highly debated topic, not just within scientific and academic circles. Tons of research efforts have been poured into looking to contact alternate life forms or even locate life elsewhere, and plenty have questioned if contacting advanced life forms would be a wise idea. That is, if they are there at all. However, research developments in DNA sequencing have pushed people to ask the question, could aliens be communicating to us through the DNA of bacteria? This theory has actually been in discussion for decades, with members of the search for extraterrestrial intelligence posing some interesting insights. Despite these debates having existed for a while, these concepts and ideas were largely hypothetical, though following the sequencing of the human genome marked in 2003 with the completion of the Human Genome Project, we know we are able to look for patterns within DNA strands. We know that bacteria in space have a long travel life and are capable of being fired great distances, even light years away from where they began. This means that bacteria could act as good hosts for messages, with aliens being able to send messages to us from afar. Trusting their notes will make it a good way through the universe. Robert Zubrin spoke at the Breakthrough Discuss in 2019 conference at the University of California to discuss the plausibility of communicating through encoded DNA. It's important to note that he is also an astronautical engineer. He said, whilst explaining how the tiny microbial bacteria could break the gravitational force of the stars they reside with, that F, G, and K spectral type stars could allow bacteria to break away. These stars are typically the brighter ones in the sky. He goes on to explain that other stars may struggle to push the bacteria outside of their own solar systems, preventing the interstellar space travel needed to receive alien codes. However, Zubrin did cite a paper that theorized that if a bacterial colony was strongly magnetized, then it could create a miniature magnetic sail. This gives the bacteria the potential to gain a 500 km/s solar wind, enough to move it out of the solar system with ease. Of course, this is all hypothetical, and there are a great number of other theories speculating as to how this is possible at all. Unfortunately, there are not any certain answers. In regard to the content of these possible messages, we know based on research conducted a little closer to home that we are able to encode bacterial DNA with information. The New York Genome Project was able to encode 215 1,000 terabytes of information per gram of DNA. An individual bacterium usually ranges between 1/10 millionths of a meter, giving plenty of room to code in a bacterial colony. As of 2019, it was considered realistic to encode some with 900 terabytes of data, which, when given some context, is ginormous. Zubrin likens this data size to 2,200,000 page books. Zubrin suggests that the next step in this research is to begin looking for encoded microbes around us. He suggests exposing bacteria to, as he describes, space conditions to see which bacterium would be best suited and adapted for flight and to survive in various conditions. Any anomalous microbes in our stratosphere could be worth further investigation. By the time we figure out any DNA codes, it could be equivalent to uncovering an ancient artifact. NASA found a strange radio signal coming from Venus. Even though scientists are always on the lookout for strange or seemingly inexplicable phenomena when venturing through space, when they do encounter odd or mysterious happenings, they are frequently not at all what they expected to find. Recently, NASA's Parker Solar Probe entered the upper atmosphere of Earth's neighbor Venus in order to collect data about the planet, and the probe detected odd radio signals coming from the atmosphere. And while those of us unfamiliar with the inner workings of space might immediately jump to the conclusion that these could be signals from an alien race living on the planet, the true meaning is something altogether more exciting, at least for scientists studying space, that is. These radio signals that were detected are naturally occurring within the atmosphere of Venus and indicate that the Parker Solar Probe, flying over 830 kilometers above the planet, had entered the outer atmosphere, specifically an upper layer known as the ionosphere. Remarkably, the last time that anyone had been able to detect radio readings from Venus' upper atmosphere was almost 30 years ago in 1992, which means that this new data will be able to give researchers valuable insight into the changes that have occurred on the planet in the intervening years. This is especially valuable as the unforgiving heat of Venus' atmosphere makes the planet incredibly hard to explore and study. So what did the researchers discover about the planet that was different than in 1992? For starters, the atmosphere appears to be much thinner than the last time that data was gathered. Researchers believe that this is due to the fact that the sun's magnetic poles mysteriously swap places every 11 years as a result of the star's solar cycles. Before the magnetic poles switch, the sun's magnetic field weakens and then flares back to its maximum strength before fading again into the next switch. Because the earlier 1992 measurement was taken during a time in the solar cycle when the magnetic field was close to the maximum, and the current reading is while we are approaching the solar minimum, scientists hypothesize that the ionosphere of Venus is changing with the solar cycle and may be greatly influenced by the sun's magnetic fields. Although why this is happening is unclear, scientists hope that future data gathered from the planet will help to clue them in. Physicists may have found a way to create traversable wormholes. The rules of the universe are fairly fixed, and the aim of some of the greatest areas of science is to try and understand what these rules are. Fun favorite sci-fi tropes often like to toy with these rules and play with the ideas of what if they were not there. It's this kind of rule-breaking that leads to ideas like getting lost in wormholes and the fun space-themed dangers we see on the big screen. In reality, the idea of wormholes could exist in the rules laid out by the general theory of relativity and the standard model of physics, but these were not traversable, meaning you cannot move through them, that is until now. A wormhole is a theoretical structure. The idea is to think of it like a tunnel, where the two ends represent different points in space-time. This means that you go into the wormhole and emerge in the same place at a different point in time, or at the same point in time at a different place, or at a different point in time and in a different place. People are still speculating whether wormholes could possibly exist. Sure, they do not go against the ideas of the general theory of relativity, but we certainly have never seen any. In 2021, a team of physicists working at Princeton found a loophole in this wormhole theory. With the ideas laid out through quantum mechanics in a five-dimensional universe, it could be possible, according to these researchers, to create a wormhole large enough for a human spacecraft to travel through and could spit out the astronauts on the other side of the universe. However, this idea is purely confined to the mathematical and theoretical world. It is highly unlikely for something like this to naturally exist, and our modern technology is nowhere near advanced enough to facilitate something this complex. The idea that wormholes may exist and that they could be traveled through is truly so fascinating, though it does not seem like we will be skipping around the universe anytime soon. Missing black hole with 10 billion solar masses. When it comes to space, there is one thing that we have all heard about: black holes. Books, movies, and TV love to feature this celestial phenomenon. Though our grasp of understanding is rather tenuous, it seems that a black hole exists at the very center of each galaxy, drawing anything and everything into it with its unparalleled gravitational pull. As such, it seems that keeping track of black holes would be the easy part. If they are so huge, monumental, and powerful, how could one go missing? Even so, that is exactly what happened with this black hole. About a decade ago, Dr. Mark Postman, a member of the Space Telescope Science Institute, was surveying surrounding galaxies with the famous Hubble Space Telescope. While surveying, Dr. Postman found a supergiant galaxy now referred to as a 2261 BCG with no black hole at the center. Indeed, the finding was exceedingly strange. An expert of galactic nuclei at the National Optical Infrared Astronomy Research Laboratory in Tucson, Arizona, Todd Lauer, added that the absence of the black hole was really unusual. According to everything we know about black holes, this supergiant galaxy must have one at its center. This black hole is expected to house 10 billion solar masses, while the black hole at the center of our own galaxy, the Milky Way, has only 4 billion. It seems impossible and unfathomable that a black hole of this size has simply evaded notice or attention. So what exactly is happening? Using the ideas postulated by three astronomers, Mitchell Begelman, Martin Rees, and Robert Blandford, one theory says that a 2261 BCG originally had two black holes that eventually combined and turned into nothing. Of course, if the burst was unequal on both sides, the impact could have sent one of the black holes flying through the galaxy. However, after analyzing and surveying a 2261 BCG even further, scientists found something interesting. The diffuse core of the galaxy seems to house four little knots of light, causing some to think that the black hole's gravitational pull is keeping them there. Sarah Birks-Ball of West Virginia University led a surveying team with the hopes of untangling what the four knots could be. They found that two of them were most likely two smaller galaxies existing inside the main galaxy. Hubble was unable to provide enough details on the other two knots to reach a sound conclusion. Luckily, Hubble's successor, the James Webb Space Telescope, was launched in late 2021. Astronomers are hopeful that a telescope of this power and magnitude will be able to describe the four knots in detail and tell us the location of the missing black hole. Despite how improbable it seems that a black hole housing 10 billion solar masses could evade detection for so long, it just goes to show that outer space holds more mysteries than we ever thought. Anonymous is a loosely associated international network of activists and hackers known for their online operations and digital activism. Since its emergence in the early 2000s, Anonymous has captured the attention of the media and the public, often making headlines with their high-profile cyberattacks and involvement in various social and political causes. Anonymous operates under the philosophy of hacktivism, combining hacking skills with social and political activism. Their actions are often aimed at exposing perceived injustices, promoting freedom of speech, and challenging systems of power. One of their most well-known tactics is distributed denial of service attacks, where they overwhelm a target website's servers with traffic, temporarily rendering it inaccessible. While Anonymous is known for their disruptive activities, they also advocate for online privacy and freedom of expression. They have been involved in campaigns against internet censorship, government surveillance, and corporate greed. In the last few days, hacking groups such as Anonymous Sudan have issued a threat to carry out a potentially devastating attack on the European financial system. Their primary target will be the SWIFT international communication system, and various members have come forward and said that these attacks could have wide-ranging consequences. A video was recently published where the group states that they are retaliating against Europe for its involvement in recent conflicts. According to security experts, although this possibility may seem unlikely, financial institutions should remain vigilant for potential attacks, as some of these groups who are sending these threats have a reputation for launching potent distributed denial of service attacks. Anonymous Sudan, a branch of the larger Anonymous hacktivist group, issued a video and multiple messages on Telegram, cautioning about an upcoming destructive attack directed towards the European banking system. The post also suggested the possibility of targeting the U.S. Federal Reserve. The person featured in the video adopts the expected anonymous approach, wearing a Guy Fawkes mask and disguising their voice. They suggest that the banking system holds significant influence. The issue with the group is that not everyone has to agree on the motives, as anyone can join Anonymous. And for this reason, in recent years, it has become known for engaging in this kind of political maneuvering, which is consistent with their previous actions of issuing threats to other organizations. The video provides an overview of an upcoming attack, highlighting the knowledge and skills of the group in relation to the European banking system. One of the most notable incidents associated with Anonymous was the Operation Payback campaign in 2010. This campaign targeted organizations that were perceived as threats to internet freedom, such as the Motion Picture Association of America and the Recording Industry Association of America. Through distributed denial of service attacks and other methods, Anonymous disrupted the online presence of these organizations as a form of protest against their perceived infringement on digital rights. Another significant event was the 2011 collaboration between Anonymous and WikiLeaks. Anonymous launched Operation Avenge Assange in response to the arrest of Julian Assange, the founder of WikiLeaks. They targeted various websites, including those of payment service providers and government agencies, in retaliation for their actions against Assange. This collaboration highlighted the power of decentralized activism and the ability of Anonymous to mobilize its global network of supporters. However, the decentralized nature of Anonymous also means that anyone can claim affiliation and carry out actions in the name of the collective. This has led to controversy and internal debates within the group regarding the legitimacy of certain operations. Some argue that it dilutes the group's message and allows for malicious actors to exploit the Anonymous brand for personal gain or nefarious purposes. In recent years, Anonymous has continued to make headlines with their involvement in various causes such as the global protest movements like Occupy Wall Street. They have also targeted extremist groups, exposing their online activities and identities. Through their actions, Anonymous has demonstrated the potential of online collective action in effecting change and holding powerful entities accountable. As of right now, the group has made themselves a prominent and influential collective of activists and hackers who have made a significant impact on the digital landscape. They have challenged authority, exposed corruption, and promoted online freedom of expression. While their actions have sometimes been controversial and their methods debated, there is no denying the role they have played in shaping online activism and bringing attention to social and political issues. Some members of Anonymous have been critical of current events happening in the world right now, leading to certain accounts being banned. The hacking group Anonymous has been a subject of debate and controversy due to their activities and methods. Whether they are perceived as good or bad largely depends on one's perspective and the specific actions being considered. One of the main arguments in favor of Anonymous is their role as digital activists and whistleblowers. They have been involved in exposing corruption, advocating for online privacy and freedom of expression, and challenging oppressive systems. Their actions have shed light on issues that may have otherwise remained hidden, sparking important conversations and promoting transparency. Anonymous has played a significant role in amplifying the voices of marginalized communities and shedding light on social and political injustices. Moreover, Anonymous has used its skills to target and disrupt organizations and individuals that are perceived as oppressive or engaged in unethical practices. They have targeted entities such as oppressive governments, hate groups, and corporations involved in shady activities. In some cases, they have successfully disrupted the operations of these organizations, forcing them to reconsider their actions. Supporters argue that such interventions serve as a form of direct action against those who abuse their power and harm others. Additionally, Anonymous has been credited with promoting online activism and the idea that anyone can make a difference. By operating in a decentralized manner, they have empowered individuals to stand up against injustice and express dissent. They have inspired others to take action and have raised awareness about the importance of digital rights and freedoms. In this regard, Anonymous is seen as a catalyst for change, sparking conversations and mobilizing people to take a stand. On the other hand, critics argue that Anonymous actions often involve illegal activities and violate the principles of law and order. Their use of hacking techniques such as distributed denial of service attacks can disrupt legitimate services and cause harm to innocent individuals. This raises concerns about the ethics of their methods and the potential collateral damage they may cause. Furthermore, the lack of accountability opens the door for malicious actors to exploit the Anonymous brand for personal gain or to pursue their own agendas. Critics argue that this undermines the credibility and legitimacy of the collective, making it difficult to discern between genuine activism and malicious intent. There are also concerns about the potential for indiscriminate targeting and collateral damage. While Anonymous may have noble intentions, their actions can inadvertently harm innocent individuals or organizations that are unrelated to the issues they are addressing. The lack of centralized control and oversight within the group makes it difficult to ensure that their actions are targeted and proportional. As of right now, the assessment of whether Anonymous is good or bad is subjective and depends on one's perspective. Supporters argue that their actions serve as a means to expose corruption, promote transparency, an advocate for online freedom. They view Anonymous as a force for change and as champions of digital activism. Critics, on the other hand, raise concerns about the legality of their actions, potential collateral damage, and the lack of accountability within the group. It is important to critically examine the motivations, methods, and impact of Anonymous to form an informed opinion about their activities and their role in the digital landscape. Cybersecurity and cybercrime have become significant issues in today's digital age with numerous financial and societal implications. The financial costs associated with cybersecurity measures and the economic impact of cybercrime are substantial. To begin, it is important to understand that the field of cybersecurity encompasses various aspects including technology, personnel, infrastructure, and policy. Organizations and governments around the world allocate significant resources to protect their digital assets and infrastructure from cyber threats. According to various reports, the global spending on cybersecurity has been steadily increasing in recent years. In 2020, the global expenditure on cybersecurity was estimated to be around $145 billion. This figure includes investments made by both public and private sectors covering areas such as network security, endpoint protection, data encryption, threat intelligence, and incident response. It is worth noting that this estimate does not capture the full extent of cybersecurity investments, as many organizations also allocate significant internal resources to develop and maintain their cybersecurity capabilities. However, while cybersecurity expenditures are substantial, the costs of cybercrime continue to rise and pose a significant financial burden. Cybercrime involves various illicit activities conducted through digital means, such as hacking, data breaches, identity theft, financial fraud, and ransomware attacks. The financial losses resulting from cybercrime are staggering, impacting both businesses and individuals. Estimating the precise costs of cybercrime is challenging due to underreporting, varying methodologies, and the evolving nature of cyber threats. However, studies and reports provide valuable insights into the magnitude of the problem. According to one estimate, the global cost of cybercrime in 2020 reached $1 trillion. This figure includes direct financial losses such as stolen funds and monetary damages, as well as indirect costs such as recovery efforts, reputation damage, and productivity losses. It is important to highlight that the costs associated with cybercrime extend beyond immediate financial losses. Cyber attacks can have long-lasting consequences on businesses and individuals, including legal implications, regulatory penalties, and loss of customer trust. Moreover, cybercrime can disrupt critical infrastructure, impact national security, and undermine economic stability. To counter the growing threat of cybercrime, governments, organizations, and individuals are investing significant resources in cybersecurity measures. The goal is to develop robust defenses, enhance incident response capabilities, and promote cybersecurity awareness and education. Governments around the world are allocating budgets to strengthen their cybersecurity infrastructure and establish frameworks and regulations to combat cyber threats. In addition to government investments, organizations are dedicating substantial resources to safeguard their systems and protect sensitive data. This includes investments in advanced security technologies, employee training programs, security audits, and collaborations with cybersecurity firms. The private sector, including industries such as finance, healthcare, and technology, plays a crucial role in driving cybersecurity innovation and best practices. While the $1 billion spent on cybersecurity demonstrate the commitment to protect digital assets, it is essential to recognize that cybersecurity is an ongoing battle. Cyber threats continue to evolve and become more sophisticated, necessitating continual investments and advancements in cybersecurity measures. Moreover, the costs of cybercrime are expected to rise as criminals adapt to new technologies and exploit vulnerabilities. The concept of time travel has long captivated the human imagination and sparked fascination and curiosity across cultures and generations. The very idea of journeying through time, either to revisit the past or explore the future, holds a profound allure for many. One alleged time traveler just recently announced that something bad is going to happen. The individual in question said that his name is Alexander, and he claimed to be a time traveler from the future. He appeared disheveled, wearing clothes that seemed out of place, and carried an air of urgency and foreboding. He spoke of a future society on the brink of collapse, ravaged by environmental degradation, social unrest, and economic inequality. His words painted a grim picture of a world plagued by wars, scarcity of resources, and a complete breakdown of societal structures. He warned that unless immediate action was taken, this impending catastrophe would occur within the next 5 years. Users on social media listened with a mix of disbelief and concern. Some dismissed Alexander as being delusional, while others contemplated the possibility of his claims. They pondered the repercussions of ignoring his warning and the potential consequences for their own lives and future generations. Although the idea of Alexander being a time traveler seemed far-fetched, his message weighed heavily on those who had read it. Many voiced their concerns with how the world is and said that it's likely that things are going to get worse in the future. Alexander posted one more on social media, telling people once again that things will get much worse before they get better, and told people that an uprising will happen within the next 5 years, saying that people couldn't deal with the conditions any longer. Some pointed out that these claims are rooted in reality, with one of Alexander's warnings being about famine. The issue of famine and its potential future impact is a complex and multifaceted one. While it is challenging to predict with certainty, there are several factors that suggest the possibility of increased risks of famine in the future. One of the primary factors contributing to concerns about future famine is the growing global population. As the world's population continues to expand, the demand for food resources increases. Coupled with environmental challenges, land degradation, and water scarcity, meeting the food needs of a larger population becomes more difficult. If proper measures are not taken to enhance agricultural productivity, improve distribution systems, and address environmental concerns, the risk of food shortages and subsequent famines could rise. Changing weather patterns, extreme weather events, and rising temperatures can have detrimental effects on agricultural production. Heat waves, droughts, floods, and shifts in rainfall patterns can lead to crop failures, livestock losses, and reduced food availability. Vulnerable regions that heavily rely on agriculture as their main source of food and income are particularly at risk. If adaptation strategies and resilient agricultural practices are not implemented, the impacts on food production may exacerbate the risk of famine. Furthermore, economic factors, including poverty, play a significant role in determining the vulnerability of populations to famine. Alexander warned that we have to prepare for this because as of right now there's no way of stopping it. Another alleged time traveler is that of Andrew Byago. Andrew Byago is a controversial figure known for his claims of being a participant in a secret government project involving time travel and teleportation. While his assertions have gained attention and sparked curiosity among some individuals, they are met with skepticism by many within the scientific community and the general public. Byago asserts that he was involved in a classified project called Project Pegasus during his childhood in the late 1960s, early 1970s. According to his accounts, the project involved sending individuals, including adolescents, through time and space using advanced technologies. Byago claims to have been selected as a participant in these experiments due to his exceptional abilities and intelligence. One of Byago's most remarkable claims is that he was sent back in time to witness historical events, including significant moments such as Abraham Lincoln's Gettysburg Address in 1863. He asserts that these experiences were part of the government's efforts to gather intelligence and alter the course of history. Byago has shared detailed accounts of his alleged time travel experiences, including specific dates, locations, and interactions with historical figures. He has presented photographs that he claims provide evidence of his presence during these time-traveling excursions. However, critics argue that the authenticity and reliability of these photographs are questionable, and they lack verifiable evidence to support his claims. Furthermore, Byago's accounts of time travel and teleportation go against our current understanding of physics and the limitations imposed by the laws of nature. The concept of time travel, especially backward time travel, remains highly speculative and is not supported by scientific consensus. While scientists have explored theories such as wormholes and time dilation, the practicality and plausibility of these ideas are yet to be fully understood or realized. Additionally, Byago's claims lack independent corroboration, making it challenging to assess the veracity of his experiences. The absence of credible witnesses or other participants from Project Pegasus further undermines the credibility of his accounts. Skeptics argue that the lack of collaboration or support from others who allegedly participated in these clandestine projects raises doubts about the existence of such initiatives. Basiego's assertions have been met with skepticism by researchers, scientists, and the general public. His claims have not been subjected to rigorous scientific scrutiny or replicated under controlled conditions. Without substantial evidence, it is challenging to accept his accounts as reliable or accurate to the scientific method, which relies on empirical evidence, testable hypotheses, and peer review, demands a higher standard of proof than what Basiego has presented thus far. While Basiego's claims may be captivating and fuel the imagination, it is crucial to approach them critically and with skepticism. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, and until compelling, verifiable evidence is presented, it is reasonable to question the validity of his assertions. As of right now, Andrew Basiego's claims of involvement in a secret government project involving time travel and teleportation are met with skepticism and scrutiny by the scientific community and the general public. While his accounts of time travel experiences may capture the interest of some, they lack the necessary evidence and independent corroboration to be considered credible or scientifically valid. It is important to approach such claims with a critical mindset, relying on empirical evidence and rigorous scientific investigation to assess their plausibility. One anonymous member sent out an update about the billions of mosquitoes that were released into the wild. In a recent development, the Environmental Protection Agency has granted approval to Oxitec, a biotech company based in the United Kingdom, to release approximately 2,400,000,000 genetically modified mosquitoes over the course of the next 4 years, until 2024. This expansion allows Oxitec to extend its ongoing trial in Florida and initiate a new pilot project in California's Central Valley, an area witnessing a noticeable increase in mosquito populations. The anonymous member explained that Oxitec's engineered mosquitoes are exclusively male individuals, ensuring that they do not bite humans. However, they warned that the use of genetically modified organisms has been a subject of significant debate and research in recent years. And one of the most notable applications is the release of genetically modified mosquitoes into ecosystems to combat the spread of diseases, such as malaria and dengue fever. It raises concerns about the potential side effects and unintended consequences on the environment and the delicate balance of ecosystems. One of the foremost concerns regarding the release of genetically modified mosquitoes is the potential disruption of ecological balance within the targeted ecosystem. Mosquitoes play a role in food webs as a food source for various predators, including birds, bats, and other insects. Introducing genetically modified mosquitoes with altered characteristics may disrupt the natural predator-prey relationships, leading to unintended consequences for local wildlife. For instance, if genetically modified mosquitoes are engineered to have reduced reproductive capabilities, it could lead to a decrease in the mosquito population. And while this might be the intended outcome, it could also affect the populations of animals that rely on mosquitoes as a primary food source. The resulting imbalances could have cascading effects throughout the ecosystem. Releasing genetically modified mosquitoes into an ecosystem can lead to the evolution of resistance among the target mosquito populations. When genetically modified mosquitoes are introduced, it is possible that a subset of the population may have genetic variations that enable them to survive and reproduce despite the genetic modifications designed to control their numbers. Over time, these resistant mosquitoes could become dominant, rendering the genetic modification less effective and potentially making the mosquito population even more challenging to control. The evolution of resistance is a common concern in pest management strategies and highlights the importance of long-term monitoring and adaptability in genetically modified mosquito programs. Genetically modified mosquito releases may affect not only the targeted mosquito species but also non-target species within the ecosystem. For instance, if genetically modified mosquitoes are engineered to carry a lethal gene, there is a risk that the gene could transfer to non-target species through hybridization. This could lead to unintended harm to species that are not pests and may even threaten local biodiversity. Additionally, the release of genetically modified mosquitoes may inadvertently harm beneficial insects, such as pollinators like bees and butterflies, which share habitats with mosquitoes. The potential collateral damage to non-target species raises ethical and ecological concerns, as these unintended consequences could have far-reaching implications for ecosystem health and stability. Another significant concern is the potential for the modified genes in genetically modified mosquitoes to spread beyond the targeted population. Genetic material can be transmitted through interbreeding with non-genetically modified mosquitoes, potentially leading to the unintended spread of the modified genes throughout the ecosystem. The uncontrolled spread of genetically modified genes can have unpredictable consequences, particularly if the modified genes provide an advantage that allows the genetically modified mosquitoes to outcompete native mosquito populations or other species within the ecosystem. It is crucial to develop stringent containment strategies to minimize the risk of genetic spread. While the primary goal of releasing genetically modified mosquitoes is to reduce disease transmission, there is a possibility that altering the mosquito population could have unintended consequences for disease dynamics within the ecosystem. Changes in the mosquito population may affect the transmission dynamics of diseases beyond the targeted ones. For instance, reducing the population of disease-carrying mosquitoes could indirectly lead to an increase in the prevalence of other diseases that rely on mosquitoes as vectors. This phenomenon underscores the need for comprehensive research and modeling to understand the potential impacts on disease dynamics and to mitigate unintended consequences. Although it sounds like something from a movie, scientists have just revealed that they plan on using mosquitoes like flying syringes and said they will start administering crucial malaria vaccines. According to a recent report, individuals participating in a clinical trial recently had their arms enclosed in mesh containers containing 200 mosquitoes. The outcome of this experiment was quite surprising, as one participant experienced the formation of red elevated blisters on their entire forearm resembling chemical burns. Photos may possess the power to convey a myriad of meanings, and while photographs are certainly intriguing, the research conducted on this latest technique holds equal significance. Recently, a group of scientists from the Seattle Children's Research Institute, the National Institutes of Health, and other establishments shared their discoveries in the August publication, Science Translational Medicine, shedding light on the underlying approach behind the phenomenon. The researchers genetically modified the mosquitoes by introducing the Plasmodium falciparum parasites. Unlike previous attempts at creating malaria immunization using parasites, this is the first time this technology has been employed to modify the parasites in a way that allows them to carry malaria without causing illness in humans. According to University of Washington, Seattle researcher Sean Murphy, mosquitoes are like 1,000 tiny flying syringes that they will utilize in their research. Throughout the research, out of the total 26 participants, 14 individuals were exposed to malaria and approximately half of them acquired the disease. This implies that the current effectiveness of the method stands at approximately 50%, indicating potential for enhancement. Contrary to expectations, researchers explained that the objective is not to release a large number of mosquitoes that protect against malaria instead of transmitting it. This proposition is certainly fascinating, but it would give rise to significant concerns regarding bioethics and medical consent. Rather than stating it outright, they have mentioned that they are simply investigating a potentially economical approach for creating and distributing immunization. A United States company has announced that it plans to release 2,400,000,000 genetically modified mosquitoes into the wild. The insects, which have been developed by biotech company Oxitec, will be male individuals that do not bite and are genetically modified to only produce male offspring that are capable of reproducing, as stated by the company. The Environmental Protection Agency has given approval for the release of 2,400,000,000 genetically modified mosquitoes in California and Florida. These mosquitoes, developed by biotech company Oxitec, are non-biting male mosquitoes that have been genetically engineered to ensure that their offspring are only male and capable of reproducing. Oxitec claims that this approach will help decrease the population of the invasive Aedes aegypti mosquitoes, which are known carriers of diseases such as Zika and yellow fever. Female mosquitoes will perish, whereas males will procreate and transmit the self-restricting gene to the succeeding generation, ultimately resulting in a decrease in population. Although these diseases are not currently being transmitted in California, the invasive insect has been identified as an escalating threat as their population expands throughout the state. Oxitec CEO, Gray Franson, states that due to the increasing health risk posed by this mosquito in the United States, they are actively striving to make this technology widely accessible. As part of this effort, they are conducting pilot programs to showcase the effectiveness of the technology in various climate conditions. These programs are crucial in achieving their goal of making the technology available to address the growing health threat. According to Oxitec, the mosquitoes will be equipped with a genetic marker, making it simple for scientists to distinguish them from other mosquitoes in the wild. The company states that the current experiment is an expansion of a previous pilot project approved by the EPA in 2020. Oxitec released 144,000 genetically modified mosquitoes in the Florida Keys during 2021 and also conducted a release in Brazil. They assert that after 13 weeks, this technology was successful in suppressing 95% of the Aedes aegypti population. Mustafa Daboon, an expert in medical and veterinary entomology and the general manager of the Delta Mosquito and Vector Control District, said that it's a clever solution, noting that rather than relying on human intervention to apply pesticides and eliminate these mosquitoes, they are harnessing male mosquitoes to carry out the task on our behalf. It's a battle between nature and nature itself. However, skeptics remain unconvinced about the absolute safety of the mosquitoes. According to Dana Pearls, the program manager for food and technology at Friends of the Earth, there isn't a concept of absolute effectiveness in science. Pearls questions the public's trust in Oxitec's experiment, expressing concern about whether it can guarantee the eradication of genetically engineered female mosquitoes. The question is, how can we be certain of its success? The opponents expressed their concern regarding the female mosquito's exposure to tetracycline, an antibiotic commonly utilized in agriculture. The use of this antibiotic may enable the survival of female mosquitoes. Supporters argue that mosquitoes typically do not venture beyond a 500-foot radius from their place of origin. According to regulations imposed by the EPA, the release of these mosquitoes is prohibited within a 500-meter distance from wastewater treatment facilities, areas where commercial citrus, apple, pear, nectarine, and peach are grown, as well as commercial livestock producers of cattle, poultry, and pigs. As of right now, there's many who are against this, and they've said that we don't know if there will be any side effects. Those against these genetically engineered mosquitoes have said that this is new territory. Nonetheless, skeptics argue that additional testing should be conducted within regulated settings. According to Dr. Robert Gould, the president of San Francisco Bay Physicians for Social Responsibility, genetically modified mosquitoes, once introduced to the environment, cannot be retrieved. Instead of proceeding with an unsupervised and unrestricted genetic experiment, he emphasizes the importance of taking precautionary measures, ensuring transparency in data, and conducting appropriate risk assessments. Mosquitoes are carriers or vectors for several disease-causing viruses and parasites. They acquire these pathogens by feeding on an infected host and later transmit them to other individuals during subsequent feedings. Because of this cycle, mosquitoes serve as a bridge for pathogens to move between hosts, effectively spreading disease across populations. Perhaps the most well-known mosquito-borne disease is malaria. In addition to malaria, mosquitoes are responsible for spreading numerous other diseases. Moreover, the threat mosquitoes pose is magnified by their adaptability and widespread distribution. Over 3,000 mosquito species exist worldwide, inhabiting every continent except Antarctica. Their ability to reproduce quickly and thrive in a variety of habitats allows for rapid disease transmission across diverse geographic areas. Different climates further exacerbates the threat of mosquitoes by creating more suitable environments for their proliferation. Increased rainfall provides more breeding sites for mosquitoes, leading to higher population densities and increasing the risk of disease transmission. Efforts to control the mosquito population and thus curb disease transmission are continuously ongoing. Genetic engineering has brought about a new epoch in biological sciences, with genetically modified organisms becoming more prevalent. While the genetic modification of animals promises various benefits, such as improved disease resistance or productivity, it also poses substantial risks to ecosystems. Genetically modified animals, if accidentally or intentionally introduced into natural habitats, could significantly disrupt ecosystems. These animals might possess advantages over their non-genetically modified counterparts, such as enhanced disease resistance or faster growth rates. These traits could allow genetically modified animals to outcompete native species for resources. Over time, this competition could lead to reductions in biodiversity as native species struggle to survive. In addition to outcompeting native species, genetically modified animals could also disrupt food chains and cycles within ecosystems. For instance, if a genetically modified animal occupies a crucial position in the food chain, changes in its population could resonate up and down the chain. This could result in population crashes or booms in other species, causing further imbalance in the ecosystem. A significant risk posed by genetically modified animals to ecosystems is the potential for the uncontrolled spread of modified genes. Once one of these animals is released into the wild, it is nearly impossible to prevent it from breeding with non-genetically modified individuals of the same species. Over time, the modified genes could spread throughout the population, a phenomenon known as gene flow. This could result in the entire population expressing the genetic modification with unknown effects on the ecosystem. Moreover, there is the risk of genetically modified animals potentially accelerating the spread of diseases. While certain genetic modifications aim to increase resistance to diseases, they could unintentionally make other species more susceptible. If genetically modified animals act as reservoirs for diseases, they could increase the risk of disease transmission to other species with catastrophic implications for ecosystems. Even the purposeful release of these animals could have unintended ecological consequences. As mentioned, genetically modified mosquitoes designed to combat malaria have been released into ecosystems with the idea that they would outcompete the disease-carrying population. However, the ecological implications of this practice are still not fully understood. There are concerns about potential ripple effects on species that prey on mosquitoes and other unknown ecological impacts. Lastly, it's important to note that ecosystems are complex and interconnected. Changes to one component of the system can result in cascading effects that are hard to predict. Genetic modifications can result in unforeseen changes in behavior or physiology that could disrupt delicate ecological balances in ways we do not yet fully understand. The advent of genetic engineering has redefined the boundaries of what's possible in biological science. Although it carries the potential for numerous benefits, such as combating diseases and improving food production, the genetic modification of animals also raises several ethical and ecological concerns. One of the main arguments against genetically modifying animals is the ethical issue of animal welfare. Genetic modifications often involve the insertion of new genetic material into an animal's DNA, a process that can cause unintended physical and psychological suffering. For instance, certain strains of genetically modified mice used in scientific research have been found to exhibit higher levels of aggression, anxiety, and other problematic behaviors compared to non-modified mice. Such outcomes demonstrate the potential for unexpected and harmful side effects that can lead to undue suffering for the animals involved. The ethical implications extend beyond the immediate suffering of individual animals. When we modify an animal's genetic makeup to serve our purposes, we risk commodifying them and disregarding their intrinsic value as living beings. This commodification can lead to a dangerous slippery slope where animals are seen less as sentient beings with rights and more as objects that can be manipulated at will. In addition to the ethical implications, there are also ecological considerations. Animals play crucial roles in their ecosystems, and changes to their genetics can upset the delicate balance of these systems. Genetically modified animals, if accidentally or intentionally introduced into the wild, could potentially outcompete native species or disrupt established food chains. This could lead to unforeseen changes in biodiversity and ecosystem health. Moreover, we must consider the potential for uncontrollable spread of modified genes through a population once a genetically modified animal has been introduced into the wild. This concern is not theoretical. It has been realized with genetically modified mosquitoes intended to combat disease-carrying populations. Despite initial containment efforts, modified genes have been found in the natural mosquito population, leading to unforeseeable consequences. There's also the question of long-term effects. Genetics is a complex field, and it's impossible to predict all the consequences of introducing new genetic material into an animal. There may be hidden costs and repercussions of genetic modification that won't become apparent until much later when it may be too late to reverse the damage. Lastly, the concept of playing God with the genetic makeup of living creatures raises profound philosophical and moral questions. According to United States cybersecurity officials, there have been a few data breaches in some government agencies as part of a larger hacking campaign by the ransomware gang, CLOP, which is likely based in Russia. Exploiting a vulnerability, this cybercriminal group has stolen significant data from various high-profile victims such as Shell, British Airways, and the BBC. Targeting U.S. government entities will likely lead to increased scrutiny by global law enforcement towards the cybercriminals engaged in this prominent hacking spree. Progress Software, which owns MoveIt, patched the vulnerability at the end of May, and the United States Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency released an advisory with the Federal Bureau of Investigation on June 7, warning about COPS exploitation and the urgent need for all organizations, both public and private, to patch the floor. A senior cybersecurity and infrastructure security agency official told reporters yesterday that all files have now been updated. Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency representatives chose not to disclose the names of the U.S. government agencies affected by the recent string of cyber attacks. However, they did confirm that they were informed by the Department of Energy that it was one of the affected agencies. According to reports which originally publicized the attacks, millions of people's state driver's license and identification data in Louisiana and Oregon were also compromised. COP, the hacking group behind these recent attacks, had previously claimed responsibility for the cyber attacks on the state governments of Minnesota and Illinois. Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency Director Jen Easterly stated in a press briefing that her agency is currently assisting various federal agencies that have been affected by intrusions impacting their applications. According to Easterly, the intrusions do not appear to be used for more extensive access, persistence within targeted systems, or theft of specific high-value information. From the information gathered from industry partners in the Joint Cyber Defense Collaborative, this attack seems to be more of an opportunistic one. Easterly stated that the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency has not detected any indication of CLOP threatening to reveal any data stolen from the U.S. government. Furthermore, a senior Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency official who declined to be identified informed journalists that there is currently no proof of COP's association with the Russian government. COP itself stated that its focus is on attacking businesses and promised to delete any information obtained from law enforcement or government entities. In 2018, CLOP established itself as a regular ransomware attacker who would encrypt a victim's computer systems and demand payment in exchange for the decryption key. This group is notorious for discovering and exploiting security weaknesses in commonly used software and equipment to obtain sensitive information from various organizations, which it then uses to launch data extortion assaults against them. This information is targeted towards knowledgeable readers who seek a neutral tone and is intended to inform about a general topic. According to Alan Lisker, a recorded future analyst who has expertise in ransomware, the CLOP ransomware was moderately successful in the past, but did not stand out until it transitioned from using encryption-based ransomware to exploiting vulnerabilities in enterprise software and stealing massive amounts of data. Cybercrime has become a significant threat in the digital age, affecting individuals, businesses, and governments worldwide. The financial impact of cybercrime is staggering, with $1 billion lost each year. One of the primary factors contributing to the high cost of cybercrime is financial fraud. Cybercriminals employ various tactics, such as phishing, identity theft, and credit card fraud, to steal money from individuals and organizations. The financial losses incurred from these fraudulent activities are substantial. According to a report by the Center for Strategic and International Studies, global losses due to cybercrime exceeded $1 trillion in 2020 alone. Businesses are particularly vulnerable to cyber attacks, which can result in significant financial losses. Cybercriminals target companies of all sizes, seeking to exploit vulnerabilities in their systems and steal sensitive data. The cost of cybercrime to businesses includes financial losses from data breaches, theft of intellectual property, disruption of operations, legal expenses, and damage to reputation. A study conducted by Accenture estimates that the average cost of cybercrime for an organization is $13 million per year. Governments also bear a substantial financial burden due to cybercrime. The cost of cyber attacks on critical infrastructure, government networks, and defense systems can be astronomical. These attacks not only result in financial losses, but also pose a threat to national security. governments invest significant resources in preventing and mitigating cyber threats, including cybersecurity infrastructure, personnel, and incident response mechanisms. The International Monetary Fund estimates that cybercrime costs governments around the world $600 billion annually. The impact of cybercrime extends beyond immediate financial losses. There are also indirect costs associated with cyber incidents, such as the expense of investigation, recovery, and system upgrades. Organizations often need to invest in cybersecurity measures, including training employees, implementing security protocols, and deploying advanced technologies to prevent future attacks. These investments can be substantial, adding to the overall cost of cybercrime. Another factor contributing to the cost of cybercrime is the loss of intellectual property and trade secrets. Cybercriminals target businesses to steal proprietary information, research and development data, and trade secrets. This intellectual property theft not only results in significant financial losses, but also undermines the competitive advantage of affected organizations. Estimates suggest that the theft of intellectual property through cyber espionage costs the global economy $101 billion each year. Furthermore, cybercrime has a ripple effect on the economy as a whole. When businesses and individuals fall victim to cyber attacks, consumer confidence can be eroded, leading to a decrease in online transactions and economic activity. The fear of cyber threats can discourage investment in digital technologies and innovation, hindering economic growth and development. The World Economic Forum estimates that the global economy could lose $3 trillion by 2020 due to cybercrime. The cost of cybercrime is not limited to financial losses. It also includes intangible costs, such as the impact on individuals' privacy, emotional well-being, and trust in digital systems. Cybercrime can cause significant stress, anxiety, and loss of confidence in online activities. The erosion of trust in digital platforms and services can have long-lasting implications for individuals' willingness to engage in online activities, hindering the growth of e-commerce and digital services. Earlier this week, an organization monitoring the movements of a beluga whale that was spotted in Norway in 2019 wearing a harness reported that the same whale has now been sighted off the coast of Sweden. This incident had garnered attention amid speculation that the whale was a spy that belonged to the Russian Navy. Initially spotted in Finnmark, Norway's northernmost region, this particular cetacean proceeded to gradually swim down the upper portion of Norway's coastline for over 3 years. However, it has recently quickened its pace during the past few months, swimming the second half of the coastline before continuing on to Sweden. 2 days ago, an individual was sighted in Hunebastrand, located on the southwestern coast of Sweden. According to Sebastian Strand, a marine biologist affiliated with One Whale, it remains unclear why this particular whale has rapidly increased its speed, particularly since it is currently moving far away from its normal habitat. The researcher said that it is possible that the male beluga whale was searching for a mate. Alternatively, his behavior may be driven by a desire for social interaction, as beluga whales are known for their highly social nature, leading him to search for other members of his species. According to Strand, the whale is thought to be between 13–14 years old and is currently experiencing a surge in hormones as a result of its age. The beluga population that is geographically nearest is situated in the far north region of Norway. Since April 2019, it is believed that the whale has not encountered any belugas in Norway. Upon its initial sighting in the Arctic region of Norway, marine biologists from the Norwegian Directorate of Fisheries carefully detached a harness that was man-made and had been attached to the creature. The mounting brackets of the harness are designed for accommodating an action camera, and the plastic clasps have the phrase, "Equipment of St. Petersburg" imprinted on them. Discovery of ancient Mayan city Holt's ongoing railway project. A railway project of massive proportions has been underway since 2020 in the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico. The idea is to connect Yucatan's historic sites, encouraging tourism and highlighting indigenous cultures. However, as it seems, the world's ancestors are doing everything in their power to avoid this transportation revolution from being carried out. While working on the project, more than 300 buildings were discovered consisting of ancient Mayan civilization, causing another delay to the project. Luckily, the site will be protected as an ecological and archaeological corridor protection plan is set to go into place. It's crazy to imagine that a civilization of humans from the far future would react to finding 300 buildings we use daily, let alone many mundane and jaded responses to discovering hundreds of ancient Mayan buildings and structures. Although somewhat unexplainable, this discovery tells us a lot about building stable structures and reinforces the common idea that Mayans were ahead of their time. Controversial cave discoveries suggest humans reached the Americas much earlier than previously thought. In a recent expedition to the mountains of central Mexico, a team of archaeologists came across evidence that suggests humans may have arrived in North America only 30,000 years ago. This is significantly earlier than what had previously been thought. While exploring the Chiquita Cave, the archaeologists discovered hundreds of ancient tools and artifacts covered in several layers of gravel and dirt. The cave is nearly 3,000 meters above sea level in the country's Astillero Mountains. The gravel on top of the tools has been carbon dated between 25,032,000 years old. The cave would have likely been used by humans on infrequent occasions, as there were very few tools discovered. The speculation for this is that North America was probably extremely dangerous during the last ice age, and the cave may have been used to hide out dangerous storms and blizzards. However, not all scientists believe the claims about humans arriving in the Americas earlier. It's possible that the tools were shifted below all the gravel due to geological activity, burrowing animals, or other sorts of activity. In addition, besides the tools, there was very little else found that implied humans inhabited the cave. One claim goes so far as to say that those living in the cave may have been a lost group. They didn't survive to contribute to the modern gene pools and perished in the cave or nearby. However, it's still very possible that there existed societies and humans who reached the Americas well before we initially realized it. This is only one example of a potential group of inhabitants that are considered to have lived there earlier than many others. The cave is still being explored, and it's unknown what might be discovered with more time and effort put into the research. Locusts can smell cancer. Recent studies have demonstrated that the newest piece of the puzzle may lie with none other than bugs, specifically locusts, in detecting cancer. Recent experiments showed that the insects are skilled and surprisingly accurate when it comes to using their sense of smell to pass out healthy human cells from cancerous ones. In fact, their ability to even identify individual cancer cell tracks suggests that locusts may be able to detect different types of cancer. They were able to measure this detection by attaching electrodes to the brains of the locusts and measuring the responses when presented with gas samples from cancerous and healthy cells. These responses, when combined across all of the cells, were remarkably accurate and distinct, clearly identifying the cancerous cells. It's believed that the locusts were able to detect the difference in volatile organic compounds that we breathe out. VOCs are altered when cancer interferes with the healthy metabolic cell processes, so researchers were keen to investigate the response of locusts, which are known for their sharp sense of smell and have been used in other experiments as well, to the differences in VOCs between healthy and cancerous cells. Needless to say, they were not disappointed when the results from the insect's electrodes were displayed. Microbiologist Christopher Contag with Michigan State University spoke about just how revolutionary this discovery could be for the future of cancer research, saying that the early detection is so important, and we should use every possible tool to get there, whether it is engineered or provided to us by millions of years of natural selection. If we are successful, cancer will be a treatable disease. We expected that the cancer cells would appear different than the normal cells, but when the bugs could distinguish 3 different cancers from each other, that was amazing. Researchers hope that further experiments can help us to understand the processes by which the locusts are able to identify cancerous cells, allowing us to reverse engineer a technology-based solution for early detection of cancer. There are 4 stages of cancer, and no matter the type, detection and treatment in early stages results in far greater survival rates. Many avenues of current cancer research have focused on successful methods of early detection, which would allow diagnoses to be made much earlier and broadens the treatment options for a cancer patient significantly. The development of a medical device that harnesses this inherent smelling ability of locusts could signal the future for cancer detection. As of right now, Anonymous have said that more questions than ever exist in regards to those objects that were taken out above Alaska. They have pointed out that the government reaction to these objects was strange. According to the United States Department of Defense, they've openly said that they take reports of incursions into their airspace by any aircraft very seriously and investigate each one. Those who have investigated this story have said that certain people within the Department of Defense are holding back information and that whenever one of these mysterious objects is detected above United States airspace, a mundane explanation is given, even after eyewitnesses shared video footage of mysterious objects falling to the ground. This in turn has caused some to suggest that something strange is going on and that they don't want you knowing the truth. Oddly enough, this isn't the first time that this has happened. And time again, people and even government officials are kept in the dark about what these objects are and why they are so frequently seen above U.S. airspace. As of right now, the true identity of these objects remains a mystery. The Defense Department took a significant step in July 2022 by establishing the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office. This office was created with a comprehensive approach aiming to address various crucial aspects. One of its primary objectives is to meticulously investigate and identify any unexplained anomalous phenomena that could potentially jeopardize national security and impede the smooth functioning of both the military and federal agencies. This in-depth initiative demonstrates the government's commitment to thoroughly investigate unidentified objects. However, lately the program has been criticized by believers, with them saying that they are not taking cases and sightings seriously and just debunking them without conducting further investigations. Unidentified aerial phenomena encompass objects or entities found anywhere, ranging from outer space to the Earth's atmosphere, land, sea, and even underwater, which cannot be recognized or classified and have the potential to jeopardize the security of United States military facilities or operations. In a significant event, Sean M. Kirkpatrick, the esteemed director of the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, made a compelling testimony before the esteemed members of the Senate Armed Services Committee Subcommittee on Emerging Threats and Capabilities. His presence at the department is actively engaged in an ongoing effort to gain a deeper understanding of and effectively address unidentified aerial phenomena. These unidentifiable objects found in various domains have the potential to pose significant risks to both safety and security. This is of utmost concern, especially when considering the impact on military personnel and capabilities. At the time, it was revealed that in a span of just 8 days, the United States military took decisive action by deploying fighter jets on 4 separate occasions. These operations were carried out to neutralize potential threats in the form of a substantial presumed surveillance balloon and 3 smaller unidentified airborne objects. These incidents occurred in different locations, namely Alaska, Lake Huron, and the Yukon Territory of Canada. Over a period of 3 consecutive days, U.S. military fighter jets successfully intercepted and destroyed multiple unidentified high-altitude objects. This series of operations occurred in the aftermath of a significant event that captured the attention of the nation's media. The event involved a large airship reportedly dispatched by China with the intention of conducting surveillance on the U.S. mainland. This airship, which traversed the entire country, generated widespread interest before ultimately being neutralized off the coast of South Carolina. Pentagon officials made an announcement on the February 11th, revealing that they successfully intercepted and neutralized an aerial intruder of unknown origin, which was approximately the size of a car within the confines of U.S. airspace. Subsequently, the following day, an American F-22 fighter aircraft shot down a small and cylindrical object that was observed hovering at an altitude of 40,000 feet above Canadian territory. Adding to the enigma, a third unidentified object was promptly eliminated from the sky above Lake Huron, Michigan, as per the announcement made by U.S. officials. President Joe Biden, along with officials from the White House and the military, have expressed their belief that the objects in question have been primarily utilized for civilian research purposes. At present, there is no discernible evidence that indicates any connection between these objects and China. The North American Aerospace Defense Command, an organization responsible for monitoring and protecting the airspace of the United States and Canada, initiated the monitoring of an unidentified flying object that was described as being approximately the size of a small car. This object was observed to be moving in a northeasterly direction at an elevation of around 40,000 feet. These details were provided by Brigadier General Pat Ryder, the press secretary of the Pentagon. The incident sparked thorough investigation and analysis as the North American Aerospace Defense Command took every possible measure to gather information and understand the nature of these objects. During the statement made by Mr. Ryder on February 10th, He emphasized that the object in question differed greatly in terms of both its size and shape compared to the alleged spy balloon. Additionally, various officials further clarified that the object did not contain any substantial payload of importance or significance. Following the dispatch of aircraft to conduct a detailed examination of the unidentified object, the Pentagon advised President Joe Biden to authorize its destruction. In light of a cautious approach, the White House concurred with this recommendation. As part of a strategic response, 2 F-22 planes were swiftly deployed from Joint Base Elmendorf-Richardson situated near Anchorage, Alaska. This immediate action was taken in response to a critical situation that required urgent intervention. According to Mr. Ryder, the entire series of events took place within the airspace of the United States and over its territorial waters. The wreckage ultimately came to rest on the frozen sea off the northern coast of Alaska. This means that every stage of the incident occurred within the boundaries and jurisdiction of the United States. A fleet of military aircrafts were deployed with the primary objective of recovering the remnants of the unidentified object. The intention behind this mission was to meticulously examine the retrieved fragments and ascertain important insights from them. In addition, authorities were also monitoring the movement of a second unidentified flying object that penetrated United States airspace in Alaska before further traversing into Canadian territory. This notable finding remained undisclosed until February 11th, when it was disclosed that the object was subsequently intercepted and eliminated by an American F-22 Raptor fighter jet. As of right now, what these objects are remain a mystery. Paul Hellyer, a former Canadian defense minister renowned for his views on the unknown, urged the government during his life to unveil classified information regarding unidentified objects and aliens. With a distinguished background as Canada's defense minister during the 1960s, Hellyer played a pivotal role in overseeing significant transformations within the Royal Canadian Navy, Canadian Army, and the Royal Canadian Air Force, ultimately leading to their integration into a unified entity. However, during the last years of his life, it was his assertions that have thrust him into the spotlight of mainstream media. Fascinatingly, Hellyer insists that influential figures in society are concealing the existence of extraterrestrial life, a notion that has prodded him to advocate for the disclosure of undisclosed knowledge in this domain. By delving into the enigmatic realms of unidentified objects and extraterrestrials, Hellyer's perspective adds a captivating facet to the ongoing discourse surrounding this phenomenon, inviting us to explore the depths of the unknown and broaden our understanding of the universe. In 2015, Mr. Hellyer initiated discussions regarding unidentified flying objects, expressing a noteworthy observation that these unexplained aerial phenomena are as prevalent as conventional aircraft in our skies. Furthermore, he went on to assert that extraterrestrial beings have been visiting our planet for an extended period of time, offering a profound insight into their motivation. According to Mr. Hellyer, their keen interest in Earth was catalyzed by the advent of the atomic bomb, which served as a significant turning point in their attention towards our civilization. Numerous experts in the field of UFO research have contended that during the initial testing of atomic weapons, there was a substantial surge in the number of reported sightings. Offering valuable insights into this intriguing phenomenon, Mr. Hellyer and other dedicated researchers propose that the extraterrestrial beings observed our development and deployment of atomic bombs, which instantly propelled humanity to the status of a significant cosmic threat. By comprehensively exploring the correlation between nuclear weapons testing and the subsequent increase in UFO activity, these experts shed light on the profound impact our atomic capabilities had on the intergalactic community. During an interview, he expressed that there has been a significant increase in activity over the past few decades. He suggested that his surge in activity shows that aliens are genuinely concerned about our tendency to utilize this destructive weapon repeatedly, as it has the potential to disrupt the delicate balance of the entire cosmos. This apprehension stems from their fear of the consequences that such actions may have on the overall equilibrium of celestial entities. Mr. Hellyer put forward the notion that there are multiple individuals within the United States government who possess knowledge regarding the ongoing events. He further asserted that establishing contact with the appropriate individuals would swiftly provide the necessary evidence, thus insinuating that the truth is readily accessible. He elaborated on the information he has received from various sources, including documents and personal interviews. According to these sources, there is believed to be a range of 2 to 12 distinct species of extraterrestrial beings. Avi Loeb calls out Neil deGrasse Tyson for not practicing science on the UAP issue. Avi Loeb said the following about the recent UAP developments and Neil deGrasse Tyson's comments. The problem is that people like Neil are pretending they care about the data, but they are not seeking the data, and he is talking about it, but he is not practicing science. And what I'm trying to do is go to the Pacific Ocean, where we know there is an object that came from outside the solar system, and study it. Now it's possible that the government may have some materials or some evidence that we have no access to, but the sky is not classified. The oceans are not classified. And if Neil deGrasse Tyson was really curious about this question, he would have been seeking the evidence rather than saying we don't have evidence and that it's an extraordinary claim, but he's not doing anything about it, and practicing science is very different from talking about science. He's talking about science. I am practicing science. I write scientific papers, I publish, and I actually follow the evidence, and that's what we try to do. What I find strange is that many scientists resist this approach of trying to collect the evidence. Not only that they are not engaged in it, they are trying to push back and say it's a waste of time, but I say, let the science be done the way it should be done. And I'm really curious if the government has materials or information that is currently hidden from view, because as a scientist, I agree with Neil that we need access to the data. So the fundamental question for me is whether we will learn about what lies beyond the solar system by studying what's at the bottom of the Pacific Ocean before we learn it from politicians in Washington, or maybe some miracle will happen and we will learn from the government as well. Renowned astrophysicist Neil deGrasse Tyson recently featured on an episode of Who's Talking with Chris Wallace, where he was questioned about his perspective on the current frenzy surrounding mysterious visits to Earth. Tyson emphasized that, as a scientist, he remains steadfast in his position on the nature of the universe, requiring solid and substantiated evidence before adjusting his viewpoints. Tyson, when questioned about his belief in the existence of alien life in the universe, expressed that it would be surprising if life did not exist. He based this assertion on the prevalence of the same building blocks that support life on Earth, the rapid emergence of life on our planet, and the large number of planets discovered orbiting other stars. The absence of life under such circumstances would indeed be unexpected. During a discussion about the definition of the term alien as any form of life, there was a follow-up question regarding whether advanced beings have visited Earth. At this point, Tyson emphasized that although he maintains an open mind, he is not convinced by the blurry and ambiguous footage of unidentified objects in the sky that is often touted as evidence of alien presence. Neil said the following: "Is it possible for something to arrive here via a spacecraft? Could very well be out there. Currently, there is insufficient evidence to persuade a genuine skeptic that we have been visited. Allow me to mention that these indistinct, single-color tic-tacs that regularly appear within restricted airspace of the Navy, right here in our own atmosphere, are not enough to convince an astrophysicist, particularly when we have access to high-resolution images from the James Webb Space Telescope, which is positioned 1 million miles away from Earth, providing a glimpse at the farthest reaches of the universe. If you truly want to convince an astrophysicist about the existence of advanced visitors within our atmosphere, you'll need stronger evidence." While some theorists may find fault with Neil deGrasse Tyson's reasoning in this matter, contending that alien spacecraft could potentially possess the capability to conceal or disguise their appearance from the naked eye or even from advanced technologies such as radar, Tyson is indeed correct in asserting that without solid evidence, everything remains speculative. As of right now, those who have been investigating this story have said that a smear campaign is happening right now against David Grosh. Air Force and intelligence community veteran David Grosh has ignited an intense debate surrounding the existence of unidentified objects. These claims, both historic and highly controversial, have encountered resistance from skeptics due to their extraordinary nature. Amongst Grosh's most astonishing assertions is the revelation of a non-human intelligence presence on our planet. Additionally, he alleges that the United States government has initiated a crash retrieval program specifically aimed at reverse engineering advanced spacecrafts. However, despite the publication of an exclusive interview with Grosh by Australian journalist Ross Coulthard, these extraordinary claims continue to be the subject of dispute. Intriguingly, the story took a serious turn when the veteran decided to testify under oath, adding a new layer of importance and significance to his account. After testifying under oath, both Gruche and Coulthard issued a cautionary statement highlighting that the intelligence community would respond to their claims from various perspectives. One publication, in an attempt to undermine David Grouch's credibility, published a critical article targeting his health issues, particularly his struggle with post-traumatic stress disorder following his services. This hit piece is just one in a series of attempts made by several critics to discredit Grouch's assertions. David Grouch, a former intelligence officer in the Air Force, delivered a profoundly startling testimony where he revealed that he had been informed about a highly classified program focused on retrieving and reverse engineering unidentified aerial phenomena for several decades. Grouch went on to accuse the military of intentionally diverting funds in order to maintain secrecy surrounding these operations. This revelation uncovers a covert initiative that has spanned multiple generations involving the examination and investigation of UAP incidents. The testimony presented is causing committee members to raise doubts regarding the appropriate approach for Congress to initiate an investigation into the witness claims. They are also urging the executive branch to provide further clarification and explanations regarding its denial of the existence of certain programs. This comprehensive and detailed exploration delves into the deep-rooted questions surrounding the need for extensive inquiry and the demand for transparency. In an effort to gather more insights and evidence, legislators are aiming to initiate the process by acquiring supplementary details and records that Grouch claims to have submitted to the Pentagon's Inspector General, subsequent to his involvement in 2 Defense Department task forces focusing on unidentified aerial phenomena. In order to extract more insights from him, they intend to conduct a meeting with the former official in a specialized facility known as a sensitive compartmented information facility. Anonymous just said the following on social media. Everyone is worried about World War III. The thing is, if it happens, you all had the power to stop it. None of the armies had to follow their orders. No one had to lift a gun to end another human. It's all on you. Stop electing idiots and following them. End quote. Many people responded to this tweet as it was shared across Facebook and Instagram. One user said the following. This comment works on the basis that our current system is real. However, anyone over the age of 30 will know that politicians have been saying the same things now for several decades and that elections don't really work. On top of this, these anonymous accounts are usually run by people who do nothing but tweet all day and then point blame at others when they don't agree with everything that they say. Politics isn't black and white, and the majority of the time we are not fed the entire truth. And even when we are, people cannot accept that the politicians that they support are bad people. So instead of holding their side accountable, they just blame the other side. And yes, many of these anonymous accounts are guilty of doing this. Another user said the following, realistically, what are people supposed to do at this point? Following the breadcrumbs to find out what is true and false these days is difficult at the best of times. Each side that pushes their own narrative is convincing. So I'm not sure what Anonymous wants people to do here. People see arguments from different perspectives. So this whole idea of we need to all come together is never going to work. If you're an American soldier, you're going to see things differently from someone who lives in the Middle East. Each thinks that the other is the enemy. The only thing that I can say is that we have some tough times ahead. The detonation of a nuclear warhead represents one of the most devastating scenarios humanity can face. The unparalleled destructive power of these weapons has the potential to wreak havoc on an unprecedented scale. The immediate effects of a nuclear detonation are characterized by the immense explosion and shock wave produced. The blast wave traveling at supersonic speeds can obliterate buildings, shatter glass, and cause widespread destruction. Nuclear preparedness becomes significantly more effective when one is situated outside the blast radius of a potential nuclear attack. In such a scenario, simply seeking shelter within the confines of your home and closing your doors will prove futile, as the destructive power of a nuclear explosion would render your house utterly obliterated. If fortune smiles upon you and ensures that you are spared the horrors of residing within the blast radius of any of these detonations, it may initially appear as though your day has been preserved from ruin. However, the inexorable truth remains that, sooner or later, the profound ramifications of such a catastrophe will inevitably infiltrate and ravage the entirety of your existence. During the initial moments of a nuclear weapon detonation, an immense amount of energy is released, primarily in the form of X-rays. These X-rays cause the immediate surroundings to rapidly heat up, resulting in the formation of a fireball composed of intensely heated air. Within this fiery sphere, the temperature and pressure reach such extreme levels that all forms of matter undergo a dramatic transformation. Specifically, everything present is transformed into a seething plasma consisting of bare atomic nuclei and subatomic particles. This phenomenon can be likened to the conditions found within the core of the Sun, where temperatures soar into the millions of degrees. The fireball that emerges after an airburst explosion from a powerful 300-kiloton nuclear weapon, such as the W-87 thermonuclear warhead found on the currently active Minuteman III missiles in the U.S. nuclear arsenal, has the capability to expand to a diameter of more than 600 meters or 2,000 feet. During this expansion, it remains intensely luminous and dazzling to the eye for a duration of several seconds before gradually cooling on its surface. The intense radiance emitted by the fireball's immense heat, responsible for more than one-third of the explosive energy of a thermonuclear weapon, possesses such intensity that it has the ability to initiate fires and inflict severe burns even at considerable distances. Notably, the thermal flash stemming from a 300-kiloton nuclear weapon can result in first-degree burns as far as 13 kilometers, equivalent to 8 miles away from the epicenter. This highlights the devastating consequences that arise from the far-reaching impact of the thermal energy produced by nuclear detonations. In the event of a 300-kiloton explosion, if it were to occur as an airburst, it would result in a powerful blast. The overpressure generated by this blast would reach levels exceeding 5 pounds per square inch, equivalent to 0.3 atmospheres, extending up to a distance of 4.7 kilometers or 2.9 miles from the target. It is important to note that this level of pressure is significant enough to cause extensive damage to residential homes, leaving them completely destroyed. Shortly after the nuclear explosion has released the majority of its energy through direct radiation, heat, and blast, the fireball undergoes a cooling process and ascends into the sky, giving rise to the distinctive mushroom cloud. Deep within this cloud exists a potent mixture of split atoms containing high levels of radioactivity. Eventually, this radioactive brew will begin to settle down from the cloud, propelled by the forces of the wind. This phenomenon, known as radioactive fallout, represents a delayed manifestation of radioactivity. It poses a significant threat to survivors in the aftermath of a nuclear war, subjecting them to perilously high levels of ionizing radiation, which can prove near lethal. When it comes to the explosion, the extent of contamination caused by the fallout is influenced by two main factors: the explosive power of the warhead, referred to as the fission yield, and the altitude at which it detonates, known as the height of burst. In the case of weapons with yields in the hundreds of kilotons, the immediate danger zone can cover a vast area, spanning thousands of square kilometers in the downwind direction from the blast site. Initially, the radiation levels will be primarily determined by isotopes with short half-lives, which are incredibly energetic and pose the greatest threat to biological systems. The acute, life-threatening effects resulting from the fallout can persist for several days to weeks. It is for this reason that authorities advise individuals to remain indoors for a minimum of 48 hours, giving radiation levels ample time to diminish. Due to the delayed effects of nuclear fallout, accurately estimating casualties becomes challenging. The number of people who would lose their life and injuries resulting from an explosion depends largely on the actions individuals take in the aftermath. In the immediate vicinity of the blast, buildings will be completely destroyed, leaving survivors without any means of shelter. According to the U.S. Nuclear Regulatory Commission, it is widely believed that humans exposed to a radiation dose of approximately 500 rem all at once are likely to succumb to their injuries without proper medical intervention. This underscores the criticality of prompt and effective medical treatment in such scenarios. Determined by the comprehensive evaluation of prevailing circumstances, accurately predicting the exact number of casualties resulting from nuclear fallout proves to be a complex undertaking. Post-explosion mortality rates and injury statistics hinge heavily upon the proactive measures taken by individuals navigating the aftermath. In the scenario where ground zero is nearby, it is highly likely that a nuclear explosion with a yield of 300 kilotons would result in the severe burning and crushing of individuals within its vicinity. It is worth noting that as the yield of the nuclear weapon increases, the area affected by acute radiation becomes relatively smaller compared to other immediate impacts. One single detonation of a 300-kiloton nuclear warhead in today's context, which is nearly 10 times more powerful than the combined explosion of the atomic bombs dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, could result in a devastating aftermath. Specifically, if such an explosion were to occur in a densely populated city like New York, the immediate consequences would be catastrophic. In the first 24 hours following the detonation, the loss of life would reach staggering proportions, with over 1 million people tragically losing their lives. Additionally, the number of individuals who sustained serious injuries would be twice the aforementioned fatality count. The impact of such an explosion would be felt far beyond the immediate vicinity of the blast. In the case of a regional nuclear conflict breaking out between India and Pakistan, where approximately 100 nuclear weapons, each with a yield of 15 kilotons, were deployed on urban targets, the direct loss of human life would be staggering, resulting in an estimated 27 million fatalities. In the context of a full-scale global conflict involving the United States and Russia, characterized by the utilization of over 4,100 kiloton nuclear warheads, it is important to consider the catastrophic consequences that would ensue. In the worst-case scenario, a conflict of this magnitude would result in a staggering loss of human life, with an estimated minimum of 360 million individuals meeting their demise in a swift manner. This estimate is formulated based on a hypothetical scenario in which a total nuclear conflict breaks out between Russia and the United States, encompassing the utilization of 4,400 weapons with a 100 kiloton yield. These figures adhere to the limits set forth by the 2002 Strategic Offensive Reductions Treaty, which allows each country to deploy a maximum of 2,200 strategic warheads. However, it is important to note that the 2010 new Strategic Offensive Reductions Treaty further restricts the number of deployed long-range nuclear forces to 1,550 warheads for both the United States and Russia. It is worth mentioning that the average yield of the strategic nuclear forces possessed by Russia and the United States significantly surpasses the 100 kiloton mark. Consequently, if a complete nuclear exchange were to occur between the two nations involving approximately 3,000 weapons, the resultant direct casualties and emissions of soot would likely be comparable. This analysis emphasizes the potential devastating consequences of a large-scale nuclear conflict, highlighting the need for continued efforts in nuclear disarmament and non-proliferation. In the event of a full-scale nuclear conflict between Russia and the United States, it is important to note that the scope of destruction would extend beyond targeting each other's homelands. Both nations, aiming to maximize their military capabilities, would not only direct their nuclear missiles towards one another, but also consider other countries as potential targets. This includes countries possessing their own nuclear weapons. These nations, now caught in a precarious position, would potentially retaliate by launching their entire arsenal or a portion thereof in response to the escalating conflict. In the present scenario, the global nuclear landscape is characterized by the possession of a considerable number of nuclear warheads by several countries. Though the statistics are undeniably horrifying, the sheer magnitude of the tens to hundreds of millions of casualties resulting from a nuclear conflict within the initial days merely represents the early stages of a calamity that will eventually engulf the entire globe. This catastrophic scenario entails not only loss of life and injuries on an unimaginable scale, but also far-reaching and long-lasting implications that will afflict humanity in profound ways. Survivors of a nuclear war may face a grim and challenging future characterized by global climatic shifts, far-reaching radioactive contamination, and the collapse of societal structures on a global scale. These devastating consequences are likely to persist for countless decades, impacting every corner of the globe. In the aftermath of a nuclear war, regardless of its magnitude, the dire consequences of famine alone cannot be overlooked. Surprisingly, the devastating impact of widespread food shortages exceeds that of the numerous bomb explosions that occurred during the war. In recent years, there has been a growing perception within certain U.S. military and policy circles that it is possible to engage in a limited nuclear war and emerge as the victor. However, experts in the field strongly disagree with this notion, asserting that a limited nuclear conflict is highly unlikely to remain limited in scope or impact. It is essential to recognize that what may initially begin as a single tactical nuclear strike or a retaliatory nuclear exchange between two nations has the potential to rapidly escalate into a full-scale nuclear war, resulting in the complete and immediate annihilation of both countries involved. The prevailing concern among experts is rooted in the realization that the destructive capabilities of nuclear weapons are unmatched, making any form of limited engagement highly unpredictable and unmanageable. However, the calamity will extend beyond just the two main warring parties and their respective supporters. The long-term impacts of nuclear explosions, both regionally and globally, often receive less attention in public discussions compared to the immediate and visible local consequences. Additionally, military planners have primarily focused on assessing the short-term effects of nuclear explosions as their task involves estimating the impact of nuclear forces on civilian and military targets. However, it is important to recognize that there are other significant outcomes to consider from a military standpoint, such as blast effects, local radiation fallout, and the disruptive electromagnetic pulse, a powerful burst of radio waves that can potentially damage electronic equipment. When examining the extensive ramifications of nuclear explosions, it becomes evident that the public discourse tends to overlook the long-lasting and widespread repercussions. Instead, attention is often fixated on the immediate devastation witnessed at ground zero. While these immediate effects are undeniably horrific, it is crucial to recognize the far-reaching consequences that extend beyond the immediate impact zone. In the context of global nuclear warfare, it is crucial to consider not only the immediate impact of nuclear explosions, but also the broader consequences such as widespread fires and other climatic changes. Unfortunately, these collateral effects are often overlooked in war plans and nuclear doctrines. The difficulty in predicting these effects lies in the fact that they require scientific knowledge that is typically absent from the expertise of military planners. However, it is important to acknowledge that these unanticipated consequences can have a catastrophic impact on humanity. In the aftermath of a nuclear war, the combined effects of these collateral damages could potentially result in the loss of more than half the world's population. This alarming outcome highlights the urgency of understanding and mitigating the far-reaching implications of nuclear conflict. Since the 1980s, when the threat of nuclear war became more imminent, scientists have dedicated their efforts to extensively researching the long-term and far-reaching consequences of a nuclear conflict on Earth's various systems. Initial studies conducted by American scientists utilized a radiative convective climate model to simulate the vertical distribution of atmospheric temperatures, effectively demonstrating the potential occurrence of a catastrophic phenomenon known as a nuclear winter. This would arise from the immense amount of smoke generated by extensive forest fires triggered by nuclear detonations in the aftermath of a nuclear war. Subsequently, two Russian scientists conducted pioneering research by implementing three-dimensional climate modeling, which revealed intriguing insights into the potential impact of a global nuclear conflict. They found that global temperatures would decrease more significantly over land masses compared to oceanic areas. Such a temperature reduction could potentially trigger a widespread collapse of agricultural systems, posing severe threats to food production worldwide. It is crucial to note that early interpretations of these findings faced considerable controversy due to inherent uncertainties associated with varied scenarios and physical parameters. However, as scientific models have become more sophisticated, the concept of nuclear winter theory has gained increasing support. While the fundamental mechanisms explaining the occurrence of nuclear winter, as described in the initial studies, still hold true today, recent calculations and advancements in climate modeling have demonstrated that the consequences of a nuclear war would be even more protracted and devastating than previously envisaged.